But, I don't think Hillary Clinton is a great person.
No.
I think she had a lot of problems.
Fucking the hot sauce. Yes, I agree.
But the things they got angry about were the wrong things to get angry about. All you have to do is sit there and say your foreign policy was not good, which is true. But then Trump goes around and he's bombing Soleimani.
He's not even bombing. This nigga can't go and speak right anywhere.
Oh, man. You saw the tweet last night. I mean, he deleted it after 30 minutes.
Okay, wait. No, we're going to talk about that. I was going to save that for my other episode, but I'm not that mad at the nigga for that. What's going on, guys? Oh, you know what? I meant to ask if you were ready before I started. Are you ready?
I'm all good.
All right. What's going on, guys? My name's Cliff, and this is Higher Education's podcast. Today, we are joined by an OG, someone that was on the podcast when this podcast was originally history. George, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Cliff. Really happy to be here.
Are you, do you remember the last podcast we were on? Because I don't think anyone who actually listened to it remembers it.
I think we were talking about Caligula and attacking the sea.
Something like that, right?
Yeah, good time.
Sent some niggas out to be like, now go attack.
Yeah.
Yeah, so back in the day, I'm just having shit with my headphone right now. Sorry. So yeah, there's always some sort of fucking technical difficulties on my podcast. It's either the camera not having enough space or my headphone not registering sound, even though I can see we have sound.
Yeah.
So it's just it's growing pains.
So it happens, man. Growing podcast at your basement. Next thing you know, you're Dave Portnoy with a $500 million business.
Hey, that would be nice to have like people. I keep telling people to make podcasts, but put it under me. No, I have my one friend who's a coworker. Him and his friends are starting a podcast where they talk about movies and TV shows, and I was like, that's dope. So I basically, they had some audio shit, and they were like, Cliff, can you help me set it up? And I was like, yeah, I know what I'm doing. I get there, like, all I use is the interface, and they have an interface and a mixer and headphones for everyone and mics. And I was like, whoa, I got a lot of stuff. Just start up. You need this one thing, and then one person might need headphones. But, like, to start, you just need a microphone and something that can register. But they put money into it, and I was like, I respect that. If I had money, I would have put it into it, too. When are you going to start your podcast? Like I said, I've been telling everyone to start a podcast. Are you going to start one?
Man, they say if you have lots of things to talk about, you should start one. So by that logic, I should.
You should.
Yeah, I mean, I could probably do like a history, political podcast. Add some history to like the context of politics, because I feel like people constantly are leaving that out. Right? We talk about issues today, and then we forget what happened 20 years. My uncle always says like people. They don't remember what happened 100 years. They don't remember what happened 20 years ago. And it's crazy.
It's like, I don't remember what happened this morning. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I might get into it a little with Iran, Iraq, and the things going on. I mean, literally 20 years ago, those guys were our friends. Or 30 years ago for Iran, 20 years ago for Iraq. And it's just crazy.
I mean, it's all about changing motivations. And it's like, you can say like, oh, this is the territory we've never been in before. But it's like, I mean, it's cliche, but history does repeat itself.
Oh, yeah.
It very much does. So since you're on the podcast today, I wanted to do like a little special history corner type thing. The podcast used to be about history. Now it's about everything. So let's hone it in to these key history topics. I got a couple things on my notes I want to talk about. The first is a couple history facts that classes don't cover. Like, for example, did you know that there were Jews that supported Hitler?
I didn't.
Obviously, if we're talking about history repeating itself, it's similar to Latin Americans supporting Trump.
Yeah.
And it's very like, I don't want to say coincidental because that was a word that almost came out, but it's eerie almost how like similar they are.
Well, it's funny you mentioned Jews that supported Hitler. There were also homosexuals up until 1935 within the inner circle. So I don't know if you know that they had the black shirts under Mussolini. Those were his paramilitary guys, and they became a big part of the military. But in the Nazis, they had brown shirts.
Oh, I had that mixed up. I was gonna say, aren't the brown shirts Italian? But
Yeah,
no.
the brown shirts were the Nazis' version. They were controlled by this guy named Ernst Röhm. He was homosexual, and him and Hitler were good friends. And Hitler was like,
your own people.
yeah, it really. And so Hitler didn't really. He like didn't like that he was a homosexual, but he like was okay with it. And Ernst Röhm, they got in a tiff and like
was he effective? Was he just like really brutal and whatever, like for the cause? So Hitler was
yeah,
like, all right.
yeah. I mean, he controlled the brown shirts. Those were the guys that went around beating people up, fighting the communists in the streets, the communist paramilitary groups.
So he was like, we share the same goal. We just don't play for the same team. So I don't fuck with you. But like,
Ernst Röhm was an ardent Nazi. I mean, they agreed on most things. The homosexuality thing that the Nazis do, they put them in with deviants like Jews and the Gypsies, doesn't come till after. So in 1935, there's a power struggle, and Heinrich Himmler, who makes the SS, Hitler's personal guard, and Hermann Göring, everyone's favorite fat Air Force guy, war hero, they come together and give false evidence to Hitler, like showing that Ernst Röhm was like working with communists or something. It was clearly fake, but Hitler goes for it, and they kill the entire SA. And the SA is full of homosexuals. I mean, they were known for having like homosexual orgies, and he kills the entire officer corps, including Ernst Röhm. And Ernst Röhm is like sitting there, and he's going to be shy. He's like, let me just talk to Hitler, and Hitler doesn't say a word to him, and they just kill him unceremoniously in the jail cell.
I think I've heard that before, or it's like I've heard something similar to that. That's crazy though. He was like, nigga, listen.
Yeah, and then homosexuals no longer are accepted within the Nazi party after that.
And I feel like Hitler might have had similar thoughts that everyone had around that time about homosexuals. It just was like, now it's like, all right, well, my main nigga's not that anymore, so like they can all go, which is fucked. But
yeah, it's as soon as like, it's like the whole conservative thing is like, you don't care until you know someone and you have empathy towards that one person, and it's that whole thing. And as soon as this one guy he knew was gone,
he was like, fuck it, there's nothing like holding me down.
Yeah, exactly.
Nothing grounding me. So similar to that, like you said, there was Jewish support for Hitler. This dates back all the way to the earliest days of the movement. The most prominent group was the Association of German National Jews. I got cold, so some words are gonna come blended out.
That happens, man.
They believed that they convinced the Nazis that they were German first and Jews second, and they even agreed with the Nazi persecution of the Ostjuden, which are Russian Jews. Contemporaries joked that at Nazi rallies the groups would shout down. They would shout down with us.
Oh my god, that's terrible.
It said us, but not us, but like them us.
Yeah.
That's fucked up.
They're other Jews.
Their leader was Max Naumann, who supported the Nazi rights all the way until he was sent to a concentration camp. Nigga, not me, them. How you gonna put? That's what you get. Why? What? How does that make? It's like you were just saying. You care until it's you.
Yeah, that's exactly what.
Why he said them, not us? We're German.
Well, there was a thing too. I mean, this isn't the same, right? These people, but they would use people in concentration camps, and they put certain people in like slightly higher positions of power, where they give them, like enough food where they won't die of hunger, and they would use them to like beat the rest of the camp into submission.
Actually, I did read about that.
But that's like the Princeton. They did that case study where they had the guards and the jailers.
Yeah, I actually like that case study a lot. Apparently, it's bullshit.
Oh, is it?
It's been proven bullshit for many reasons. Like, because when you do take like psychology 101, they teach you that, and they're like, now this is why it breaks every civil code and this and that. But also, like, it was just very biased, and it was also kind of fake. It relied on actors and a bunch of like variables that you can't control or make. I don't know. I can't give you the exact reason why, but I wanted to say something also about the concentration camps. I was just reading recently that when they like liberated the first Auschwitz, they would go in and some of the guards would try and hide amongst the prisoners.
Oh yeah.
And they'd be like, "Nigga, you are big. You look well fed."
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean?
It just shows they knew what they were doing was wrong.
Yeah.
And they didn't. I mean, a lot of people think like the Nazis were like this one singular evil, and I've never been someone who believes that. I think you can convince any regular guy to do any horrible thing.
Here's the thing,
you just give them a fake justification.
Well, they knew what they were doing was wrong to the point where, like, when they first started pushing east and they were going into Russia, there weren't gas chambers. They were just like men, women, children, shoot them, put them in a ditch. And soldiers were like, yo, like, PTSD up the ass. Like, I'm killing millions of people face to face.
You can only shoot so many people in the head until they break.
So they're like, oh, let's just have them push a button. That's going to be so much easier on them. They knew what they were doing was breaking down their... And they were like, let's just make it easy on them. Yeah. To keep doing what we're doing.
It's like drone strikes today, right? It's like a video game for people. People don't even think about it. These people are now, they're bombing... civilians, but it's okay because it's collateral damage, and it's okay because we're the United States, right? You kill one terrorist, 40 civilians, it's worth it.
Yeah. It's fucked.
Jimmy Carter, last good president on foreign policy, if you ask me. Didn't drop a bomb in office.
I can agree with that. What also gets me about that decision, though, is like, they had that at a little nice, like, hotel in the conference room with fucking finger sandwiches and shit, and they were like, yeah, buttons. Fuck this headshot shit. Buttons. Gas.
Well, yeah.
Sandwiches and probably flowers and
it's
decorations
an
on the
thing.
tables.
Originally, their plan for the Jews was... So the final solution is 1942, I think Adolf Eichmann comes up with it. But originally, there was like a ulterior plan where they were going to send them all to Madagascar. Right? Madagascar is a French colony. They beat France. They think they're going to get a peace agreement with England pretty soon. And it's just interesting that they thought they could turn them into like a colony where they can't like interfere with their gene line and all that. But of course it changes once the war starts going against them. They figure they need to cleanse the world when they can.
Not even that. France said no.
Well, France...
Do you know what happened in between that? We talked about this on the podcast before. I really don't want to get into it, but that's why the genocide of German Southwest Africa happened. Is because they wanted to put them in Madagascar. France said, fuck no. We don't want... France was just as racist. They said, we don't want Jews there.
Oh, they didn't want... No one wanted Jews anywhere. In America, we passed an immigration act that... Like the one that Trump just passed. It's really
fucking sad. No one wanted them.
It was like the one Trump just passed, where it's like a means test, where if you get government support, you're not allowed here. They passed that in America right when the Jews were trying to leave.
We weren't righteous. We weren't above anyone. We didn't want them either.
People act like I said, like the Nazis were a greater evil. The only evil that comes is when they start losing the war and they start gassing people. Genocides had happened before.
I mean, that's what I said. What comes after them not being able to put the Jews in Madagascar, which again, we talked about this on the podcast. I really don't want to go deep into it. But their idea was to put them in German Southwest Africa. The only problem was there were people there. There's a tribe of nomads. And so they tried to work with them. They put up lands and farms, but they were nomads, so they moved fucking everywhere. German settlers would shoot the people that were on their lands. The tribes revolted. The Germans revolted back harder with machine guns and poisoning wells and killing their cattle, which is they're nomads. That's their only culture. That's genocide. Mm-hmm. And Germany just apologized for that in 2013. And I found out about that in a history college class. No one talks about that.
No one ever cares about what the colonial powers did. Everyone is only just getting to their apologies. Meanwhile, we're still indigenous tribes across the world.
That's a precursor for mass genocide. They put them in concentration camps. It wasn't murder camps. It was just work till you die.
Yeah, which is
with numbers, and that's where they learned how to numberize people.
The original plan for concentration camps. You know,
I mean, we had them too. America had them.
Yeah.
In the what's it called? In the islands in the central, the Hispanic islands, we had concentration camps for the same reason: the number and work. And then I guess you could call slaves concentration camps if it's another variation of it.
Well, I mean, they wanted
they weren't numbered.
They wanted to keep slaves alive though, because they were a valuable commodity.
And that's the fucked up part.
That's the worst part. That's the only reason they cared about keeping them alive.
Oh, we'll get into this too when we talk about Reconstruction. That is like the one thing that sucked about the Civil War and slaves being free, is that when slaves were slaves, at least they were worth something. Like, you were someone's property. I have to take care of you, so you do stuff for me. When you're no longer, not even not my property, but you get land and you're now my competition.
Well, they didn't even get land. They became serfs, basically. They weren't tied to the land, but sharecropping?
That's still competition. Horrible. I get it, you working for me, but like, I have to pay you now. As opposed to, I'll give you some fat and some pig brain and you live off that. Now I have to give you a penny.
Well, sharecropping, they would give them tools, they give them a piece of land to work with, but then they'd just be in debt. So like the housing would just keep building debt, so they never actually paid them anything. It was like such a messed up system.
Okay. That's worse.
Yeah, it was just like slavery with extra steps, as people always like to say these days.
But that's still like some form of like, I'm giving you things, you know. That's not like a
one could argue. I mean, that's what advocates for slavery
that's why
always
they're
said.
like,
They were giving them food and in some aspects in education, and they had a place to sleep, and they were taken care of. And with sharecropping, it's almost the same.
You can see
thing.
the racist morph in their brain from like, I'm giving them these things so they're better for me, as opposed to like, I think I'll live there. They owe me money, but I gotta give them tools, and if their tools break, I gotta give them more tools, and then they owe me money, but I'm not getting it because they owe me so much money.
Well, they were just taking their crops basically. So.
Yeah, what if ain't no crops being made? They gonna be mad.
And they get kicked off the land, and they bring in a new family. It's even worse in some ways.
So like, I was gonna say I don't know what to do, but like I don't live in that time.
Oh, a lot of people migrated north, of course, but the people that didn't, that stayed behind, they were stuck sharecropping.
Even north, they had the same mentality of like, it's what we have now. Like they're coming to take our jobs. Like what? Why would I want them to come north if I'm fighting for food and a job, and then 500 of people that don't look like me come up here? I'm gonna be a little upset.
Yeah, it's bad.
So like niggas just I guess go west.
Well, some did, right? So a lot of people went and worked on the railroads that ended up connecting the United States. I mean, you had African Americans and Irishmen were the ones that were working on the railroads going west. And then, of course, you had...
don't forget about the Chinese, too.
Yeah, you had the Chinese working on the ones that were coming east from San Francisco. And then, of course, you had all those horrible immigration acts passed to keep Chinese people out.
And then I was going to say, the people that if you weren't white working on the railroad, you were probably treated like shit. Like absolute shit.
Oh, well, even Irish people were treated poorly. I mean...
Yeah, I know the Irish were treated poorly.
The Irish were like a rung above the blacks, barely.
I don't mean to, like, not shit on the Irish or not talk about the Irish, what they got shit on.
Oh, yeah.
But I hate when people bring that up. Like, well, the Irish were slaves, too. And I was like, nigga, that's not the same
for a
shit.
little bit.
That's
but the thing
shit.
is, the difference between the Irish
the
and the
shit.
African Americans, of course, is the Irish get things afterward. They get the police. They are the police of New York for almost 100 years.
And shit, nigga. What do you mean?
They get a whole
I
police
watched the gangs
force.
in New York, nigga.
When did they finally reform the New York police? It was like, what, in like the 1960s or 70s?
70s. Literally, I watched a documentary called The 13th, and it was like 17th. I forget. It's the number, double digits, under 20. And it literally was about that. And that was like, they started reforms like late 70s, early 80s.
They own that police force. I mean, they got that. Are you telling me African Americans ever owned a town like that? No, they didn't get anything.
Well, they did. And then white people would come in and burn it down.
Oh, yeah, 1921, right?
So, like,
that's what Watchmen's all about. That
oh, my God. Oh, shit. And that's the thing, too. I need the whole Black Wall Street, I know nothing about. I need to look up it's horrible. I need to look up so much about that.
Yeah, as soon as they, that's the thing. People are like, okay, so reparations, slavery was so long ago. All the things that occurred in between that and the civil rights. What about that 1921, everyone there? Of course, they talk about...
Right, it's even like they bombed the whole city block in Philly. And it's like,
oh my God,
bro. And I read about that, and it was like, all right, the people in there had guns, and they were held up in there. But like, isn't there a step between that, like nothing, and bombing a block? Like, do you have to bomb a house if they're barricaded inside of a like? I don't think so. Like SWAT tactics or anything like that. But there's got to be other options.
Look, the problem is police have been more and more militarized over time. I mean, they just. Everything is shoot first, ask questions later, bomb them first, ask questions later. I mean, it's unbelievable the amount of people we see where they put 200 bullets into one car, like a guy and a child, and they don't end up having a gun.
Or like even the Super Bowl commercial I saw last night. I did not even know about that. Where the dude was like, got stopped by a plainclothes officer and got shot.
Well, that was the Michael Bloomberg commercial.
What?
That was a Michael Bloomberg commercial.
You want to talk about that right now? Because what do you mean?
Oh, yeah. So Michael Bloomberg.
Because wait, okay, so what happened with that story? Is he connected to it, or is he using it for?
He's using it for his political ad. Michael Bloomberg is.
Okay, that's fucked up.
If you don't know who Michael Bloomberg is, he's a New York billionaire. He was the mayor of New York. He's a self-made man.
That's
right?
all I know about him is he's the mayor of New York.
Yeah, he's a self-made man. He didn't grow up very wealthy. His family didn't have much, and now he's worth $40 billion, right? But he's one of those billionaires that thinks he's the reason he got everything. He doesn't like you have.
But didn't you just say is he not the reason he got everything?
Right, but you know, a guy like Tom Steyer is also a self-made billionaire.
But he
That
attributes it to other
guy
people.
is aware of the fact that the system benefited him, right?
Okay,
Whereas a
yeah.
guy like Mike
We're on-
Bloomberg
we're
thinks
back.
that he
We're
worked
back.
for everything, right?
Yeah, we're back.
Mike Bloomberg thinks he's right and that like regular Americans can't make decisions for themselves. He thinks that he's smarter than everyone. He's so proud of the fact that he doesn't need money from other people. He self-funds all his campaigns, so he's not in debt to anyone.
Okay.
The problem with him,
You want a cookie?
yeah, a guy like that is he wants to like ban cigarettes altogether, right? He thinks weed. He hates weed. He
No,
thinks
we're
like
off that. We're off that.
he
You can ban cigarettes. You can reason me that cigarettes are bad. That's fine. Like people should be allowed to make their own decisions. But if you want to say that's major health effects, cool. You ban weed. You lost me. Go ahead though.
yeah. So the whole weed thing, because he's like, oh, we have drug addicts everywhere in the opioid crisis, and you want to legalize this. Yeah, he's got the worst the view on it. It's like, oh, you're so smart, but you can't even figure out weed is helping people.
Backwards, like,
right? And you know, I don't smoke weed at all.
Even
I don't like weed personally.
Yeah.
But I understand the benefits of it.
Well, even I smoke a lot of weed, and I like weed. I can understand the negatives about it, but I understand the negatives are definitely less than the negatives of opioid.
Oh yeah, of course.
What? Like I said,
Bloomberg is also like one of his big thing is gun control, which I personally think. Look, I think there should be smart gun control, but that shouldn't be one of your top gung ho things. You're not going to win the election touting gun control in a Super Bowl ad.
No.
And I know who he's trying to talk to.
No,
but it's not a good look, and people are just going to.
I always feel like it does suck that people who own firearms are scrutinized. But in the same way, don't we also scrutinize people who drive cars?
Yeah.
Who also operate like heavy machinery? But also, isn't that like I drove 2 years without a license. I now have my license. I can't in the same breath be like, well, we should monitor those people and like have harder checks when people like pull over everyone, make sure that like it's a level, there's levels to it.
Well, yeah, I mean, for me, when I look at a guy like Mike Bloomberg, he's like this guy who thinks he's better than everyone. He knows what's good for people. He thinks that as a rich person who's so successful, like he knows how everyone should live their lives. And I personally think that like autocratic thinking is not the kind of thinking we need. And he's buying his way. Like he's already spent $250 million, which is nothing to him because he's worth $40 billion.
Yeah.
And on ads, TV ads, and he's starting to get up in the poll. I mean, 9% nationally for a guy who hasn't been on any debate stages. He's not even in the early election. He's not going to be in the Iowa caucus tonight. He's not even trying. He's only going for these other states. And he's so afraid of a guy like Bernie Sanders who actually cares about people. I mean, this guy, he hates freedom. That's what I like to say about Michael Bloomberg, right?
Michael Bloomberg.
We don't believe in look. I have like a slight libertarian tilt because like I think like drugs should be legal and synthetic drugs should be highly regulated in my opinion, right? So like you can get rid of most of the side effects, and we could chemically do that very easily and reduce that market. But you know, Michael Bloomberg, he's got a bad Me Too record too going on. He's a lot of people.
This nigga out here getting Me Too'd.
You know, his company culture was apparently terrible in the 90s, and he's like moving past that and like it doesn't matter. I mean, I just doesn't seem like a guy who should be running for the Democratic nomination. You know, he was a Republican when he first ran for mayor of New York. He's a guy who endorsed Rudy Giuliani. He endorsed George W. Bush.
Genuinely, or is he just pandering to the biggest audience?
These are people he endorsed back then. And then after the Iraq War, he becomes an independent, right? Because the Iraq War was so bad.
So that's what I'm saying. Is he pandering to like what the general? Because
Michael Bloomberg only cares about Michael Bloomberg, and you don't need leaders to only care about themselves. He does whatever is useful for him, and he's not tied down to anyone, right?
I was trying to figure out how he works. Like, does he just jump from like base to base, being like, this works for me, this works for me?
Yeah.
Well, okay.
So he's an independent, and then in 2018 he registers as a Democrat. So for the DNC, he gave the max donation.
He was an independent from when?
Huh?
When was he an independent?
He was an independent. I think 2000, about 5. I think it could be anywhere from 3 to 6, but I'm pretty sure 2005.
13 years?
Yeah, so he's an independent. Then he becomes a Democrat all of a sudden. And right when he starts like running for office here, he gave the max donation to the DNC, which was like 300,000. He gives the max donation to their PACs, right?
Yeah.
And then they just changed the criteria for getting to the debate stage, which was you had to have a grassroots donors, right? They completely removed that. And it had been there all along because he has no grassroots. He's like got like one donor, and it's Michael Bloomberg, basically. And so now people are saying they're rigging it for him. They're raising the polling thresholds a little bit. And it's going to make it so a guy like Andrew Yang, well, I like Andrew Yang. I don't think I'm going to vote for him. Really good ideas. He's a guy who thinks forward. He thinks about how can we solve issues rather than, he doesn't think in the past all the time. But we're not here to talk about Andrew Yang. Talking about Michael Bloomberg. And it's just ridiculous that this guy, they think he might be a solution. And what he's trying to do, he's not even trying to win. He's just trying to make sure Bernie doesn't get enough delegates to just win the convention outright. So they can have a brokered convention and make a backroom deal.
That's petty.
It's ridiculous. They're trying to subvert democracy, which is, these establishment people. He's not even an establishment guy. They're just looking for anyone that can help them out.
No. I don't like that.
Yeah.
And that's why, I don't know. I kind of like walked in when they're like, all right, the nominees. And I was like, listen, I'm just going to vote for Bernie. I'm going to listen to Bernie. We share the same ideals. And this nigga's been fighting for a while.
Yeah.
Like a long while.
That consistency of platform.
I saw a picture of him getting arrested that was in black and white. And I was like, is that logic? Like, that was Bernie Sanders with the glasses.
That was him in the civil rights movement. And people are going to sit here. They said he praised George Wallace. He was comparing George Wallace to Adolf Hitler. I don't know if you saw this. In a 1972 article, he was talking about how he understands, because if you look back to the Nazis in the 1930s, a guy like George Wallace, now they speak to a certain part of people, right? And people were saying this is praise.
That's not praise.
No one wants to be compared to Adolf Hitler. I'm sorry. I think we can both agree on that.
I hate that when you make a pure comparison, people always try and run with a narrative. And it's like, I literally just said, apples are red, oranges are orange. Oh, you like the color orange more? No, I just said this is similar to, it's making an observation.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I mean, the guy, consistency. Every other politician you see, they go wherever the winds are blowing. Yeah. And they're like, oh, Joe Biden's from so long ago. It's
Joe
not his
Biden's
fault.
mad creepy. This nigga just be...
Oh, God.
This nigga just be smelling girls' hairs.
He's like saying, I wasn't trying to cut Social Security, even though there's like 3 videos out there.
He was cool when he was the vice president, but like, nah, nigga, you...
Well, he tried cutting... They tried cutting it in 2013, and then Bernie sat there, and he was like, you can't do this. And he got all this grassroots support to get angry at the White House. And really, it was the Tea Party who saved it, because they refused to make any deals with the Obama White House.
See, that's exactly why I'm broke, Bernie. All right. The next thing they didn't tell you about in school. Wait. Mayor Bloomberg? Is there anything else you want to say about him?
I think it was pretty good. He hates weed. He only thinks he's right about everything, and he's just a rich guy that thinks he's earned all of this. He's earned the right to buy an election.
Don't vote for him. Exactly, because you're not just fitting to buy an election. Don't vote for.
He's the one guy, right? And I hate saying this. I'll vote for any Democrat left other than him. If he's in the general, I can't vote for him.
Yes, you can, nigga. If it's him versus Trump, you gonna vote for him and we gonna fight.
See, I just think he's not good for the country. I don't think either of them are taking the country anywhere good.
Did we not learn anything the first time with the lesser of two evils?
I don't think Michael Bloomberg is a lesser evil. In my opinion.
Don't think that?
No,
you really don't.
I don't. I mean, this guy.
Shit.
Because imagine this.
I'm
right?
finna move. If those were my two options, I'm gone. I'm sorry.
See, I get that. I mean, he's so bad. I can't stand people that hate freedom that way. That think they're going to regulate everyone's lives.
Bro, I have to be God.
He's not going to do anything for healthcare.
Those simply couldn't be my options.
He's not going to do anything for Social Security.
You don't leave with me.
He's going to privatize everything. Yeah. I mean, this is a guy who thinks that the free market can solve everything.
Wait, go back, though. Because is he even going to have that much power to do that?
Yeah.
You're just going to leave with me?
Right? Because, look, a guy like Michael Bloomberg is going to work with the Republicans all day long. He's going to do everything they want as long as he can get his... He'll trade everything on the public on the public welfare things just to get his gun control thing passed. Like, he only cares about a couple things, and it's not things that we really care about as people. He's not going to do anything for student debt.
I'm trying to figure out what I want to say that's not going to get me arrested. If, hypothetical, so I'm not legally liable, I would never do this. But if that was our options,
hypothetically,
probably assassinate some niggas. Not me personally. But some
I can't condone violence.
I would take one for the team. I mean, not me.
Hypothetically,
not me. Someone else.
You can't go around assassinating. It's not the way to do anything. No, he just shouldn't be able to buy his way into an election this way. And someone needs to stand up and say that's wrong. And even worse, get a brokered convention where he gets it. Where, look, a thing that people don't talk about, that the biggest thing, what you want for your candidate, they say this, that, or the other thing. It's really their favorability rating in America. And that guy is underwater among Democrats, right? Like, not even Democrats. Like, when I say favorability rating, I mean percentage of people who like him and percentage of people who have a negative.
Well, how do Republicans feel about it?
Republicans are
whatever.
They're never going to vote for him over Trump. I mean, he's not going to win over Trump voters. People already want Trump. Independents don't really like Michael Bloomberg.
I got so many people that come to my store wearing Trump 2020 hats, and I'll be like, I want to serve you. What do you want? My customer base is mainly old white people too. So
yeah. That. Look, I can talk to someone who likes Trump, and it's interesting to talk to them and pick their brain. I want to learn why they think they're doing it, and then I want to ask them about policy questions.
But then there are two. There's so many different. There's not one Trump supporter.
No, there's
so many
not.
Different Trump.
Some
supporters.
of them are a little culty.
Yeah.
Like they think like Jesus sent him to us, which can't do anything with someone like that.
I can't talk.
Yeah, you can't.
No.
You hear it and you're like, all right, move on.
No.
But there's some people who there are certain, like, they think he's good for the economy or whatever, and you can talk to them and you can say, my favorite question to ask a Trump supporter is, did your taxes actually go down? And most
I paid $1,600.
Most middle class people I talked to, their taxes went up.
Yeah, holy shit.
Yeah, and this doesn't get talked about enough. Look, if you're in the 1%, your taxes went down. I get it. But most people, people, their taxes went up, and something that should be hammered. That if 98% of Americans' taxes go up, you didn't do a tax cut.
That's not. No. And, okay, so, maybe this is controversial. I also can't talk to the ones that were like, it was the lesser of two evils.
Who, Trump? Oh, well.
I can't talk to those either.
Yeah,
that's something else. That's
it's one thing if they say that and then they say, I regretted doing it.
Nah, because they talk about Pizzagate and I'm like, bro, what?
I don't want to hear about it. Benghazi.
What are you fucking talking about right now?
Investigations were in Benghazi.
The fucking emails, nigga.
Do I think Hillary Clinton is
recorded on a phone? Trump got recorded on a phone at what? That's not even like a spy mission. That's this right here. Someone did this on the corner and it was like a 2-hour video. That's bad space, but they rich. That's crazy. And they talking about Hillary used a personal Gmail account. Like,
well, everyone in the Trump White House uses their personal accounts. It's crazy. No one cares.
No one gives a fuck.
As soon as it moves on. But, I don't think Hillary Clinton is a great person. No. I think she had a lot of problems.
Fucking the hot sauce. Yes, I agree.
But the things they got angry about were the wrong things to get angry about. All you have to do is sit there and say your foreign policy was not good, which is true. But then Trump goes around and he's bombing Soleimani.
He's not even bombing. This nigga can't go and speak right anywhere.
Oh man! You saw the tweet
country.
Last night. I mean, he deleted it after 30 minutes.
Okay, wait. No, we're gonna talk about that. I was gonna save that for my other episode, but I'm not that mad at the nigga for that.
Oh, well.
Come on, bro. You can't tell me that 70% of people, a lot of people who don't want. I sat here right now. I wasn't gonna put them on blast, but now I have to. Sam and Christina were sitting right here, and I said, I saw the tweet, saw my friends in the group chat trashing it, and I was like, hold on, where is Kansas City in? And they're like, oh, Kansas. People don't know that. They don't know it's in Missouri. People also don't know that they're,
was I surprised?
More people know that.
Was it the worst thing he's ever done and something he should be destroyed for?
Stupid,
no.
Kansas City, Missouri, and Kansas City, Kansas are if the border is here and they're here.
You're the president of the United States. You can at least have one person proofread your tweets.
That's what my friends were saying, was proofread.
It's not that hard. You have so many people that work for you for free. It's just like a small step.
You're right.
You shouldn't be typoing anything. It's the account of the leader of the free world, so people say.
It was football. This nigga can't use Google. You right. You were so right.
It's just.
I was like, but when I first saw it, I was like, this is what the nigga.
We're gonna look. All right, we look at professional athletes' Twitters and we pour through those guys when they were 17 years old, and we try to cancel them. But you're gonna tell me the president of the United States gets a pass? It's ridiculous.
Yeah, you're right.
I don't think people what they write when they're 17 they should be attacked for so much.
Sometimes
as long as they're doing things better now.
Sometimes they should. But here's my thing about it. I don't think attacked. But I do think it's fair that if it should be brought up and be like, hey, you should apologize for it.
Yeah, as long as they apologize, though.
I hate when it's like,
they're not
that was so long
it.
ago. You gonna punish me for that? Well, like, you said the N-word on Twitter, and then you never really got in trouble for it.
Yeah.
So you never had to atone for it. So kind of like I think someone broke it down to me very well, where they said, you know, your old fans, like with Kevin Hart, when he had his whole comments that he came out about the dollhouse and his old jokes. It's like your old fans know these jokes, they're accustomed to what you said, or even Louis C.K. But your new fans come in, and then it's like everything is now new for them. So is it fair that you might have to apologize for every discretion you have? Like Dan Harmon had an old bit that was supposed to be mocking how he had a fascination with serial killers like Dexter. So he had a show. What was like I don't want to say it wrong, but like a baby assaulter.
Right.
And it's more than bad humor. That's kind of also offensive. Cause like,
in a lot of ways, yeah.
And I get what he was trying to say is like, why are we fascinated with these serial killing murderers as protagonists when this and that? But it's like, bro, that's a whole nother level of like, what you could have made a point a whole other way. And then your new fans find that I might need an explanation. So maybe not every time, but if I can find like
you need some context surrounding it. You need a lot of context. You need to contextualize the crap out of that.
Because even if you apologize once, as soon as I find this new thing, I can also type in your name and see the apology next to it. So you don't have to apologize every time, but the way the internet works is that if you apologize once, it's there every time.
Yeah.
And people just don't understand that. They're like, nah.
People are lazy. It's amazing. Every time you see anything
life to politics,
on Twitter or something, you see something, you're like, oh, that's a cool fact. Just Google it.
Yeah.
If you really, I
snopes everything.
Yeah. If you're so like surprised by something and you're like, oh, that's amazing. If that's true, just Google it. We all have iPhones. Look, and if you don't have an iPhone out there, I'm sorry, you have an excuse.
Everything has, but an Android, everything has Google.
Yeah, but if you like, let's say you have like a BlackBerry or something still, whatever, I get it. Then you have an excuse. You don't have data? Fine.
You're so right.
How rare are you, though? You're like 10% of people now.
This nigga's like, congrats, Kansas. Kansas is like, what do we do? Thanks.
Unbelievable.
Missouri was like, this nigga here. Everybody said, oh, God. He said he deleted it at 18 seconds.
18? I saw it on my Twitter. I don't think he deleted 18.
Oh, that's what you said. He said he got that shit out the way quick.
I thought it was up there for like 18 to 30 minutes.
How do athletes have people that manage their social media, but the president doesn't? Like, I'm not saying that the president, because obviously he don't want to manage it, number one. Why does he not have backup niggas also having access to the account?
You see, now that's a good idea. Everyone just always
look at this nigga shit. Like, Mr. President, let me see your phone number.
Yeah, but I think the problem is if they tried doing that, like as soon as someone deleted something that they thought was controversial, he would roast. Like, I don't want to say roast, but he would tear into that. He's an angry, thin-skinned guy. I mean, it worries me. Can you believe? I was just talking the other day with some people, and we were just talking about people who've been fired. You won't believe the list. You start naming people. You're like, that feels like a lifetime ago.
Nigga, like, hold on.
And everyone hates him. There's no like, other than like Hope Hicks, who like used to be on America's Got Talent with him. Like, she's the only amiable person who got let go. Everyone else is angry.
Oh shit. Nigga, y'all gotta scroll so far for this list.
Oh, is that people who got fired?
Yeah.
Oh my god, it's unbelievable. I just kept thinking of people. We're just laughing about it.
8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. Okay. I think it might be doubled, though, the amount of people that resigned.
Yeah.
19 people got fired.
And then 1, 2, 3,
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37. 38 people resigned.
My God. Well, you remember this was so long ago. I read it just got Freedom of Information Act. It was some emails in like the National Weather Service, I think, and they were talking about. You remember that hurricane map where they sharpied it?
Yeah.
To like make it look like it was gonna make landfall on Florida or whatever. And they were just talking about how ridiculous it was that he did that. And, like, none of it was true. There was no map that showed that. But because he, like, misspoke and said it was going to hit Florida,
He did it anyway.
he sharpied that map and, like, put it out. And they were talking about, like, how dangerous that was.
But
like,
and that's great. We knew that at the time. Like,
yeah, well, some people did, but some people believed him because they believe everything he says. And that's true.
Well, the reasonable people knew that at the time. Cause
but,
they were like,
you know, if you got 30% of the United States that takes everything he says is true and everything else trying to discount it as false, which is true. You know, those people do believe that, and we can't discount that. So really, his words do matter.
That's why it's dangerous. Jeez.
All right. What's your second history fact? Yeah. Got a little off track.
You know what? Like I said, fuck it, because we really don't talk about this shit on my like actual podcast, so it has to be talked about.
Yeah. Well, I can come in once a month and do this. We can have our politics and history podcast.
History all right. This is just ridiculous. Werewolves and witches were tried alongside each other because of tomatoes.
Tomatoes?
Yeah, I saw this shit on Google and I was like, you gotta tell me more.
You gotta tell me more. I'm interested.
I was like, wait. So, apparently, during the Salem witch trial, right?
Right.
Thousands of women were executed because of, like, assumption of being a witch for anything. I mean, really, it was just like...
And one person would testify that they're a witch.
Exactly. You could just tell that your neighbor was a witch, and there's no, like, all right, let's go.
You don't really have recourse.
So, like, people used to think that they would, you know, be like, all right, if she tie her rocks to her legs, if she sinks, she's not a witch. If she floats, yeah. Mostly, they kind of just burned them or hanged them. That was, like... I tried to find instances of that. That was like...
of the if you float, you're a witch, and if you drown, they were one of God's peers.
I couldn't really find a lot of them, but like, yeah, they happen. I like to believe they happen.
So I didn't know about werewolves though. Tell me more about this.
So, it's pretty much the same shit. Basically, they said that witches like werewolves because they enjoyed visiting hell, and eating the left sides of children. So they would say. Yeah. So thousands of men were also executed for being werewolves in the 15th and the 16th century.
Okay.
They basically believed that werewolves and witches went together like peanut butter and jelly. So if you were a witch and you lived with a man, or your like a best friend was a man, that's a werewolf.
Oh.
So
that's clear logic right there. You can't really blame them.
You gotta be guilty of something. What are you, a werewolf? You still shit.
You're colluding with a witch. I mean, come on.
So they said that they used the same shit. Just a bunch of like, they fly on brooms and they had the power to turn people into werewolves. And witches like werewolves because, like I said, they enjoyed visiting hell. Weirdly, the main ingredient in the witch's ointment gave some resemblance to tomatoes. There was widespread skepticism about New World crops in Europe, and people simply did not trust tomatoes. Are they fruit? Are they vegetables? Are they safe to consume? Who knows? People had a lot of questions, and they thought they found one, and they thought they found the answer to the last one in the medical knowledge of Greece. An ancient physician named Galen first described the mystery plant whose name was hard to translate, but probably meant wolf something. His drawing resembled a tomato plant, and by 1561, Europeans decided that tomatoes was this wolf plant. So even after Italians and Spaniards started incorporating tomatoes into their diets, the French and English remained firmly in the belief that tomatoes are satanic. And I guess I'd stay that way until they got spaghetti. You're guilty. What's this? Pasta? Nah. That's that wolf blood.
And the French are famous for invading Italy, so I'm sure every time they went in, their priest came in and said, "It's a spaghetti and a pasta? Werewolf." They probably just started burning Italians.
Get the crosses and what's it called? The metal stakes.
You know, it's funny you were talking about the weight they put on witches. In Mesopotamia, they had this thing where, like, they had a legal code, you know, Hammurabi's legal code. That's, like, the first legal code. Yeah. But if there was, like, a dispute where, like, people said, he said this, no, they did that, the way they would solve the dispute it's actually the opposite of damned if you float. So they would put you in a cage, and they like put rocks in the cage, and they put you in the water. And if you magically float somehow, they thought you were blessed by the gods, and it was you telling the truth.
Nigga, what?
At least
the dead body's like, oh, he's innocent. Get him out. Oh. Hey, you gotta go into now. Eye for eye. Get in there.
Well, no, if you float, you're gonna live, right? So if you're floating, you're not dead.
If you get out.
If you float, like you float and you lived, like you didn't drown at all. You didn't go down.
If you drowned, slip through the
So
bars,
like if you lived, they would put both of them in there, right? So if they both drowned, they were both guilty.
Imagine fighting underwater like that. You did this shit. That's so funny. That's like basketball. It's like, all right, shoot for the ball. Like, what? Nigga foul, but underwater. He fouled me.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's funny. All right, so the last history fact that we don't know about. Back to the Nazis. So, did you know about the Muslim division of the SS?
I did actually. So they came from Palestine, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So, basically, Hitler and Nazis had a strange relationship with Islam. Hitler personally hated Christianity, a religion he described as Jewish filth, and described Islam as a religion of men. He even wrote that Germany historically had developed the wrong religion. It was his belief that if Germany had been Muslim rather than Christian, it would be a stronger, better country, rather than a weak and flabby country that Hitler saw. I'm not saying that. That was Hitler.
Yeah.
I don't think that. Arabs and Muslims were exempt from Nazi racial laws for the duration of the Third Reich. When the Nazis conquered Muslim regions, they devoted considerable resources to rebuilding mosques and madrasas, as well as training soldiers on the correct behavior when interacting with Muslims. What?
They didn't want their soldiers to be ignorant.
What?
Yeah.
What?
So
what? Wait, that's fucked up.
Well, I mean,
was that a diversity training?
You think back to time. I mean, the Turks were their allies in World War One.
They said, "Hey, don't be these brown people, but not these guys. Fuck, don't do that."
So the Turks were their allies in World War One, and they were like German, like half the German advisors there were like distraught that they were committing a genocide in the middle, like the Armenian genocide. It's not technically I think the U.S. just ratified it was a genocide, actually, the UN. Finally, 100 years later, right?
Hold on.
So
technically,
they were
we
German,
really
so that were pushing
culture.
it, right? The Armenian genocide and genociding the Greeks there. Not surprising that Hitler probably thought they were cool guys. They're like, yeah, we should steal this idea.
It's just like not these guys. So yeah, the entire time Hitler hoped to spark an Islamic jihad against the British and the Russians. There was even entire divisions of the Muslim SS. The Nazis' high command once tried to use Islamic scripture to paint Hitler as a prophetic figure after the war in North Africa. Himmler asked Nazi security forces to find a passage that they could apply to Hitler. The security office replied that no such passage existed. But we might be able to portray this thing as Jesus.
Jesus. Well, I think there was there was like an Iraqi coup or something that occurred that was pro-Nazi that the British actually had to nip in the bud. And Iran was, well, supposedly was pro-Nazi too.
They said there was a figure that they could do that comes back at the end of the world to fight Dahal, who's basically the Antichrist. They were like...
They were going to name Hitler as that guy.
Yeah. And then they printed 1 million leaflets. I'm not going to read the leaflets. I'm going to put it up here because fuck that.
Let's say we're lucky that he didn't unify the Muslim world.
Well, no, the Muslims didn't buy that shit at all. They said, what the fuck?
Some of them did.
Yeah, well, some of them did, but apparently not enough. Yeah. That's just kind of like it feels like you're making fun of us here.
If he was really smart, he would have done it before. But, thank God he wasn't.
Oh my God. There's so many times where I'm like, thank God. You know what?
People forget
I don't
this.
Be thinking shit, but I be thinking shit where I'm like, he could have did this, but thank God.
People forget, they just don't know that Hitler was on so many drugs. Like, he was on speed, so many painkillers. Like, they were just pumping drugs. And same with the German army. The German army was, in the early stages of the war, was fueled by they were all given methamphetamine. That's why, like, the Blitzkrieg, like part of it was giving them all speed.
I mean,
and that's why they could march for so long. And then, you know, towards the end of the war, they run out of their supplies of it.
Is that why they lost?
Oh, that's not the only reason they lost.
He said, well, we ain't got no more Coke.
They didn't have Coke. They had like meth. Like it was meth. What does meth do? They were giving them all meth.
What does meth do?
Meth keeps you up for hours and hours.
So we had a bunch of toothless Germans.
Yeah. We really did. It's crazy.
This nigga's just... Y'all got the meth.
That's why Hitler becomes like a paranoid freak by like 1942.
Oh, that actually makes completely sense. Because he was just probably deteriorated. His mind was gone.
Oh, yeah. It was... Thank God for drug addicts, right? It saved us from Hitler being coherent.
From being a fucking diabolical villain. Whew. All right. Let's take a break real quick. I'm going to try to clear my nose up. Then we're going to get to the Emu War. So on my other podcast, we do like an end segment called The Horrors of the World. Or basically, Horrors of the World.
Oh, horrors.
Yeah, it sounds like horror sometimes.
Yeah. I was so... Woo.
Yeah, so... It's basically, before I get into that, I usually like to rap. So before we talk about our final segment, I'm going to give a little rap. Yeah, talking about the land down under. This shit came from the thunder. Yeah, talking about the flightless birds. Yeah, talking about the turds. These men had a war against some chickens. These men had to go and make a living. Yeah. Down in Australia. I ain't got nothing to rhyme with Australia, but the story about to be mad crazy. I'm not talking about the lazy. I'm talking about the brain dead. Talking about some people about to go and grab their head. Wondering how we can't win. Wondering how I'm gonna go and forgive their sins. Talking about this shit making me go crazy. About to go and have a baby. I just laid an egg. I'm about to go. No, I ain't got nothing to write with egg. Peg. It's always afterwards too. But yeah, the Great Emu War. I know you couldn't get it because that freestyle was all jumbled all over the place. You got it because I told you beforehand.
Yeah.
For those that were very disconnected by the freestyle. Talking about the Emu
Let us
War.
lay some knowledge on it real quick.
And I will say, if you can do better, come on the show and prove me wrong. I just want people to come on the show. I know that was trash. But if you can do better...
until they're here. Until then, you're the number one.
Exactly. All right, so did you know that the Australian Army once went to war with emus and lost?
I've heard like bits and pieces of this story, but I don't know the whole thing.
Okay, so basically after World War I, the Australian government had trouble finding employment for ex-soldiers. So they encouraged veterans to take up farming by offering land to them in Western Australia. After the Great Depression in 1929, the farmers were asked to increase their wheat crop in return for government subsidies. So if the economic decline wasn't enough to deal with that, these wheat farmers also faced challenges growing crops in a drought-filled and marginal farmland of Western Australia. In October 1932, these difficulties were only exacerbated by the arrival of some 20,000 emus. So emus are known for migrating after breeding, and they typically move towards the coast from the inland regions. So
let's see where this is going.
The inland regions were cleared in Western Australia, and the irrigation networks that were quenching the soil were found by the emus. And the emus were like, this is here. Right here is where we'll live. So these birds quickly caused concern for the farmers. The emus ravaged the wheat crops and broke fences, leaving the crops susceptible to other critters. Farmers brought their concerns to the government, and being World War I veterans, they suggested to take care of the problem using machine guns. The Minister of Defense, Sir George Pierce, agreed, but felt that active military members should be deployed to take care of the issue.
Active?
They said, come on, we wanted to do it. What do you mean? Why We brought the issue to you. We said machine guns. You were the one, nah, you can be handling else with machine guns. All right, but them.
Americans would have just been like, here are the guns. Australians, they're a little more restrained.
Like 60? No. We're like, yeah, go ahead. Here, you got guns. You can do it. So on November 2nd, 1932, troops under the command of Major G.P.W. Meredith traveled to Western Australia, where a flock of emus had been sighted. When his men got there, the birds were out of range, so the locals tried to herd them into an ambush. As they did this, the emus split into smaller groups, running around and proving to be difficult targets.
Oh my god.
The first series of shots was ineffective. The second round killed a few, but by the day's end, only a dozen or so emus had been destroyed.
A dozen? What are they shooting with? Maybe they should have invited the veterans. Maybe they've actually shot things.
They should have used rocket launchers.
They didn't have rocket launchers in 1932.
Grenades.
Motors, maybe.
So a couple days later, they go back and they try another ambush at a dam. This time, we see 1,000 emus, and they start running towards them. The gunner waited till the birds were close, and then he opened fire, but even with such a large group of birds, the soldiers were only able to kill about a dozen more before they scattered.
Are they? It seems like they're intentionally missing, right? Seems like they feel bad about what they're doing.
Come on, man. Just close your eyes. Just point somewhere. If you close your eyes, you would surely hit more than a dozen.
We're going to get through this, mate. Just miss on purpose.
So the result of the first couple of attempts to quell the emus would be indicative of how the operation would go. Over the next month, thousands of rounds of ammunition would be fired, and while the total death count is uncertain, estimates put the dead emus somewhere around a few dozen to a few hundred. Even a few hundred is not enough for when they saw 1,000. Meredith's official report conflicted that his men had suffered no casualties.
Wow, I'm proud of them.
But despite that, the emus proved to be smarter and faster than the soldiers had thought. Meredith and the men would ultimately draw back due to lack of success and negative media coverage.
Good job, media.
Y'all niggas. 1, why you trying to kill emus? 2, you can't even hit it. This is just a waste of money. The Emu War would lead Perth-based ornithologist Dominic Cerventi to comment, the machine gunner's dreams of point-blank firing into absurd masses of emus were soon dissipated. The emus commanded had evidently ordered guerrilla tactics, and its unwieldy army soon split up into insurmountable small units that made use of military equipment uneconomic. A crestfallen field force therefore withdrew from the combat area after a month.
Wow.
Major Meredith would go on to rave about the military prowess of his feathered foe. If we had a military division with bullet carrying capacity of these birds, it would face any army in the world.
Oh my god.
If they could face any machine guns with the invulnerability of tanks. He had some levity about it, at least. He said, well, no, we got outsmarted. Even though the Emu War had more or less been a failure, farmers continued to request military assistance against the emus throughout the decade. They were all turned down. After the 1940s, the emu situation would improve, and this is more thanks to better fencing. It's more humane. They kept the emus out. Everybody was happy, and they've lived in peace ever since. Why did you?
That's wonderful.
Why was that not the first thought? They said, let's just shoot him. They said, hey, what kind of fences you got? No, it's not the fence. Just shoot him.
Couldn't even do it.
They said, yeah, we used.
Meanwhile, the Americans destroyed the entire buffalo population at the same time.
They said, fuck it, they gotta die.
They did it,
now
right?
We got
they
some
did
fire
it
buffalo chicken
in the
wings.
1870s. They didn't even have machine guns yet. They just had. They were just shooting
pow.
lever action rifles, and they got them all.
Emus are smarter than buffalo.
That's
emus
true.
are so much smaller too. They said they go. What?
They're not that small.
12 emus out of it. Can you imagine 1,000 emus?
And you got 12. That's.
Nah, you can't tell me they missed. I would have been mad as shit the first time. You shoot. Yeah, they're all right there. Whoa! Who taught them? They just broke into 10 small groups. Who taught these niggas? And that's
I guess Australia is like home to so many predators. Maybe they're so used to avoiding things. Whereas like the buffalo probably didn't have as many. So maybe that's what was happening.
what's that? Pow. He was just like, nah.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is, but shit. It's not a kangaroo. If they would have said handguns, I would have believed them. You mess with handguns, I got you. You mess with machine guns, you need to take your guns
It's
away.
funny we're talking about like a army in like 1930 not being able to do anything. You know, like the Iran-Iraq war that happened in like the 1980s, like the whole like military thing that was happening there, just like World War One. Like they were doing trench warfare. They would just send people over the top. They'd all get mowed down. So the Iranians were like right. So the Iranian Revolution happened in 1978 or 79.
Yeah.
The Shah gets ousted, and then the Ayatollah Khomeini, who's he's in charge now, is the guy, a different one obviously. Yeah. That's just the title. He gets put in charge. Jimmy Carter's there. He's not gonna fire a bullet. Like it was like mostly peaceful, and they're like trying to be neutral with this whole thing. But then the Iraqis invade, like under Saddam Hussein, and so Jimmy Carter's not supporting either side. It's like letting it play out. The Iraqis start winning in the beginning. And Ronald Reagan comes in. All the hostages get freed from Iran the second he takes office. And then what you have going on is the Iraqis start losing. In like 1982, they're like pushed back into Iraq. The Iranians are starting to get together, even though like they had these massive purges where they're like getting rid of all the non-religious people, almost like the Russians had right before World War II with Stalin purging the entire military. So they have this type of thing, but there's more Iranians than Iraqis. They're better soldiers. So the Reagans and his like cabinet officials start panicking. And they think for some reason Iran taking over Iraq will lead to a whole destabilization. Which
wait, is this the Iran-Contra shit?
This leads into it.
Okay.
But prior to Iran-Contras, you have them panicking and they think Iraq's gonna fall. So they start sending all the weapons to Iraq. Right?
Why is that a bad thing though? If we were originally with
we were originally with Iran. Yes. The Shah was our ally, right?
Yeah.
And Iraq is run by Saddam.
Yeah.
So Donald Rumsfeld, who, if we remember who Donald Rumsfeld is, he's Bush's Secretary of Defense.
Okay. So
he goes and meets with Saddam, and we reopen relations with Iraq, which we didn't have any prior to this.
That's what I'm like.
Because the Iraqis are crazy, and Saddam is. So we start selling them weapons, including poison gas.
Yeah.
Now, poison gas, if you didn't know, hadn't been used in a war since World War I because of the Geneva Convention. We sell it to them.
How laws work.
Yeah. So we sell it to them to use against the Iranians, right?
I know.
And we are funding this whole war. We're selling them armored vehicles. We're selling them some planes too. Guns, obviously. And it's just a stalemate for a while. No one's making any progress. People are just getting mowed down.
Fucked it up.
Yeah, people are just getting mowed down. So, like, estimates range the Iranian casualties somewhere between 200,000 to 600,000. Now, if you go to that upper figure, more Iranians die in that war where we supported the other side throughout than entire American casualties since 1898. So, people ever wonder why Iran hates us.
Yeah, that's why.
We kind of funded that. Meanwhile, the Iraqis at the same time were also genociding the Kurds and the Sunni majority in the south, their own country.
Wait. So then, sold them stuff. We got money.
We didn't really get money. We were just giving it to them.
What happened with the Iran-Contra?
Iran-Contra. So at the same time, towards the end of the other end of the war, 1986, this is where it gets complicated and how bad it is. We start selling weapons to the Iranians because the Reagan administration is no longer allowed to give weapons straight to the Contras. Like, Congress forbade it.
Yes, that makes sense.
So they start selling weapons to the Iranians, and this off the books money, they use to support the Contras. So we're also still supporting the Iraqis.
Yeah.
And now we're selling weapons to the Iranians too. Yes. So we're funding both sides of the war.
Yeah.
Right?
It's fucking Palpatine shit.
Yeah.
I am the Senate.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
which really should have been impeachable. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah.
So this is happening. We give weapons to the Contras, and it's a whole weird triangle thing. And then by 1988, Saddam doesn't want to make peace at all. He's crazy. He wants land. Keeps like saying, "I want land." And then like the international community, the entire international community, by the way, was like on Saddam's side for this, which is crazy to think about. Saddam Hussein was supported by the UN for the most part.
No, it's not. The entire history of the world has been, I want land. Let me just push and get it.
Yeah, but the UN is siding with the guy who initiated the war for a long time. And then towards the end, they start
a lot of. I think they forget.
The only people who didn't like the Russians weren't very happy about it.
They were like, "What? Nigga, this is bullshit."
Yeah,
we supported these niggas.
Yeah, because they were kind of cool with Iran because they had like a bunch of moles and like the mullahs.
Is that why they went to war with Iraq?
Well, the Russians don't go to war with Iraq, but
is that a thing where
they're in Afghanistan at the time.
I'm sorry, I'm mixing my places. Never mind.
Yeah, so when they talk about today why the Iranians hate us, it's because we supported them getting poison gas in this horrible war where so many of them die. More than U.S. casualties and civilian, dating to 1898, die in this 8-year period. So peace happens, and then Saddam, he's unhappy because he didn't get any land, but it's like a white peace, basically. Like, no one really gets anything. Some prisoner exchanges don't end up happening till like 2002, and people are held in these horrible places. Yeah. Saddam gets away with genociding people during the war in the north and the south. Because the Ba'ath Party that he was the Shia minority in Iraq. Like 80% of Iraq is like Sunni.
Yeah.
So we keep them together. Iraq, this fake state created by who? The British. Like, Iraq was never an idea. It was just like the Ottoman Empire, and then the British controlled it, and then the French had Syria, and they just like made it up. And then we, the U.S., were so intent on holding it together, even though if it collapsed, what would have happened? Where the Iranians would get to the Israelis? The Israelis are the best army in the world. They could have handled themselves, pretty sure, because the Iranians were using World War I tactics, and so then Saddam goes into Kuwait for whatever reason, and that's where our operation. The first Gulf War occurs. And now the whole international community goes against Saddam after everyone was funding him. Think about that. And then, not only that, we leave him in power, and he gets out of Kuwait, and he's just sitting there, minding his business, being crazy, because he was crazy, and doing some genocide, just like he'd been doing. And then all of a sudden, after 2001, we go in Afghanistan, which makes sense. Osama was there. But then in 2003, we get the WMD thing. All the WMDs that they found, like the chemical weapons, we sold all of them to the Iraqis. They were all ours. So we go in there, we're talking about nukes, but all they have are chemical weapons that end up killing a bunch of our troops.
Yeah. Right?
Because most of the casualties that end up occurring from that war early on and the first Gulf War, really the first Gulf War, almost all the casualties were because of the chemical weapons we gave to them, because of stocks that we bombed that end up like killing some of our troops.
Shit.
And then, of course, we dismantled the entire Iraqi system in the second Gulf War, which made no sense. And we don't have a plan to rebuild, really. I mean, it's just over and over we go in these countries. We don't have a plan. We're just like, remove him, and then what? And people wonder now, Iran, it's like, are you kidding me? It's our fault that they hate us. Qasem Soleimani, how many Americans? He's a bad guy, right? What about Donald Rumsfeld? Donald Rumsfeld was going around shaking hands with Saddam, giving this guy international recognition, help selling him weapons, and then turns around and says, like, this guy's like the worst thing ever, and we need to get rid of him.
But you made him.
You made him. You could have let that guy fall. And I don't think... Look, the Middle East is definitely not more stable because of Iraq was left to be. You know what I mean? It's not a stable place. Everything we've done has been, like, pressing the wrong button. We're, like, breaking knees and making, like, this guy, like, limp. That's the Middle East right now. And it's just amazing to me that people are going to sit here and say, like, Iranians are so evil. Look, they're
No.
have bad ideas. Sure, they're a
God.
little fundamentalist Islamic, but look at history.
See, that's why I couldn't fight. I couldn't fight for this country.
Yeah,
There's no way. There's absolutely no way. I had other reasons, obviously, but no. Now there's absolutely no way.
it's impossible to do. Did you read the Washington Post Afghanistan papers that came out in November? This is the other. So we all know why Iraq is.
What time is it? I'm sorry. So we can go all day, but like, yeah, we good.
What is it? 3:35.
No, not time. I'm at the. I like to keep these about like an hour 20. Hour 20 is probably the longest.
Right at hour 12.
Yeah, we're at hour 12.
Okay, so I'll finish up here. So these Afghanistan papers came out, and they basically said that since like 2 years, 2 years into the war, we haven't made any progress. And every general, right? Not just the Bush ones, the Obama ones, the Trump ones. Every person that gets put in charge is we're right around the corner from turning it all around. We're making good progress. It's like the same line. Everyone has the same line.
Yeah.
Administration to administration, right? No progress. We're just pouring money into it. We've spent $2.5 trillion in Afghanistan. Think about that. That's trillion.
Yeah. It's unimaginable.
No one can really fathom $1 billion, in my opinion. People really don't. They don't understand how much money that is. $1 trillion is like make believe.
It's unimaginable.
It's like, and we spent 2.5 of that. Think about all the things we could have funded since then to do nothing. We're not doing anything. There's no plan. We tried making a centralized country out of a country that's never been centralized. It's like going into Germany in like 900 AD and being like, centralize this country. We're going to one government.
Niggas with some sheep and like, what? Nigga, what do you want me to do?
It's no sense.
Like,
you're like destroying all the tribal authority. People are still dying. Like, one of the bigger indicators of progress is like civilian casualties and if they're going down. Do you know the highest year of civilian casualties in Afghanistan? So, guess what year you think that was? Since 2001 when we went there.
2017.
Last year.
Damn.
Last year was the top number of civilian casualties. Last year, but yeah. What it seems is about to happen is we're like having peace talks with the Taliban, and the Taliban are just going to win. And we spent all that time there trying to modernize, do this, that, and the other thing. It's just going to be the Taliban winning.
It's a sunken cost fallacy too, because like you just leave. It's like, well, we put so much into it. We just
you at this point you just have to go. You can't.
I agree.
You can't justify.
That's what a sunken cost fallacy is. You'd be like, oh, I did. Oof.
Right. What is it? You can't look at past performance to dictate your future decisions. Right? At this point, you have to look at it and be like, we're not doing anything. We haven't been doing anything for years. We don't let them like grow anything useful. They just grow poppy over there. It's like their number one export right now because they're not allowed to grow cotton. Because if they grow cotton, it's going to compete with U.S. cotton. So they're not allowed to do that. So they just grow poppy. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Man, you want to move? I want to leave. All right. Before you make me want to leave the country anymore, I think we got to end the podcast.
Yeah. That was good.
Yeah, I want to go to a different country. This is bullshit. All right. Anything else you want to say real quick before we end the podcast, George? Anything else you want to say?
That was pretty good. I mean, Afghanistan, that's more unbelievable than Iraq because we all know how bad Iraq was. But just for it to come out, and I feel like no one cared. No one reported on it.
I feel like.
Even though it literally said we haven't done anything the whole time. Nothing has changed.
That's a waste. All right, wait. Say something happy before we end the podcast.
Iowa caucuses today.
All right.
Right? Michael Bloomberg is not in the Iowa caucus.
Cool.
And Bernie was doing pretty good in the polls leading into this. Most of the last couple polls, he's been surging. So I'm cautiously optimistic. We saw Andy Reid got his first Super Bowl yesterday.
Why did you do that? All right, guys. This is
look, I'm a Philly guy. I love Andy Reid.
I said the 49ers were going to run it down the Chiefs' throat. And I was kind of right until Kyle Shanahan said, fuck running. Why his second Super Bowl did he say fuck running the ball when it was working?
So if you guys at home don't know,
God, that's so dumb.
Cliff was at my house for my party
That's
on
so
Saturday,
dumb.
and I told him.
I didn't say they would win though. I
told them
that.
I'm gonna come and tell you. I told you so.
I never said they were gonna win.
I told you so.
I said they were gonna run it down their throat, which they did. And then why would you throw? And then he threw it with Jimmy G, and Jimmy G was like, "Fuck, pressure." Wait, what? Why was?
Look, Kyle Shanahan is a good coach. I mean, clearly he's been to 2 Super Bowls, but man. They thought Andy Reid didn't know how to manage a game at the end.
Man, I've never seen, like, oh, bro, you would think having the biggest Super Bowl collapse in Super Bowl history, you would be like, yo, let me watch this game film and never do this ever again.
And then he was like, I feel pretty good about what I'm doing here.
You know, I listened to this one podcast and I know what they're going to say. Because everyone's been saying it to him. Jimmy G, you don't need that nigga. What? You made him throw 8 times against Green Bay. You don't need him.
You saw Skip Bayless right after the game said, "Get rid of Jimmy G.
Oh,
Bring Tom Brady in for 2 years."
Did you see the Tom Brady Hulu commercial?
Oh my god!
I was like, this nigga here. Yeah.
That was funny.
This
I remember I saw on Twitter like someone was like, "This is gonna be an ad in the Super Bowl."
Oh no, I didn't see that. All I saw was a picture, and I was like,
"Yeah, I saw the picture first, and then someone was like, I think this is gonna be an ad in the Super Bowl." I was like, "No way."
I was like,
they were right.
The away entrance is a better picture angle than the home entrance, so that's how I was explaining it. And I saw that, and I was like, this is an ad for Hulu. First, I was like, you gonna retire in an ad, you bitch.
He didn't retire.
That's what I was like. Back. I was like, you gonna retire in an ad? Then I was like, this Hulu. All right.
Me, I'm not going anywhere.
I was like, now, all right, now what does that mean though?
It means he's not retiring. I don't know if it means he's going back to the Patriots.
I know, nigga. That's why I was like, why would you?
We could sit here and talk about sports for a whole nother hour.
Yeah.
Really
all right.
Good.
So, my name's Cliff. This has been George. Thank you for coming on, George.
Thanks for listening, guys.
Hopefully, we'll see you again.
Oh, you definitely will.
This has been Higher Education Podcast. Peace.
And then we see Drogon blasting through the city.
In a chair.
And Shrek was pretty. I maybe wash the shit off my hands, and then we peel it off. I've heard of buoyancy related to like boats and like, for example, how little compromise with evil is okay as long as it all works out in the end, right? Bop, bop. He had it with the shield. He said, everyone was flaming him too.
Fuck that, dude.
Everyone was flaming.
Hey, we racing the roof.
Like, do something if it means everything or whatever the fuck it said. I guess.
I never wanted you to work.
I did.